I'm Bethany Abrams, and this is Pastor Josh, and we're here with the Weekend Extra. We're wrapping up tonight, asking for a friend.
Series is done.
Yay! And we're cutting it off, which was the name of the...
There's a lot of other difficult passages we could have done, and so it has to get cut off.
Yeah, because maybe people would stop coming altogether.
We'll do every hard passage in the Bible.
That would be great. So you talked about tonight God's complete character, how His holiness and His justice exist together, and then we were talking about the scripture from Matthew 5:27-30 from the Sermon on the Mount, and it's talking about when Jesus says that you've heard it said. That and that means that you've interpreted something a certain way, and He's saying, "But I tell you, and this is how to correctly interpret it." And basically, He was saying that not to you've heard it said not to commit adultery.
Yeah, but external.
Yes, and He's saying, I'm saying, don't even think about it. Don't.
Yeah,
It's
much deeper than that.
Right, it's much deeper. So. You were talking about an exclusive relationship being single-handed, and one of the things that stood out to me was you were talking about how if you're holding somebody's hand on this side, if you're holding Sarah's hand, your wife, on this side, and you're at the movie theater and somebody else touches his hand, you're going to be like, whoa, 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 my armrest, back away. This is exclusive.
I've already determined.
Right, so you're ready to cut that off.
Yeah.
And so when I was thinking about how when you need to cut something off in your life, you have a sin that's just creeping in all the time. How do you practically cut that appendage off, and how do you go about that?
Yeah, and again, the disclaimer that this is not, he's not actually telling us to cut our hands off and gouge our eyes out. So anyone watching the Weekend Extra, that is not the application.
Please don't. Come in, everybody's one-eyed.
But yeah, it's like, it is really convicting because, I mean, we're all weak and we all struggle. And so it's like, yeah, I can think of something that I need to cut out. And I think that sometimes we just get so familiar and like it becomes so convenient that we're just so used to this sin existing or used to something being a part of our life and we can't escape it, that sometimes we need even people outside of us to think of it in a different way. Right. And that can be hard, and it's hard to nitpick, one specific struggle or thing. But I know even for me, I've just learned that there are just things that are dangerous for me, or things that just aren't best for my heart, or for my relationship with Sarah. Like, I know this may sound weird, but like I just don't even have internet on my phone. Yeah. Like, because I don't. And it was something I felt entitled to. I was like, oh, I have an iPhone. Right. I just like it should have internet on it. Right. But I can do everything from my computer anyway, and it just wasn't ever used in a productive way. Yeah. And so it just became something that once I gave up the entitlement and that like this is what's normal or comfortable or convenient, that it just became a new, fresh way of like having that not even be something that is it's a boundary. Yeah. And there's all sorts of things like that it may just be I've never thought of what it might like to be putting a boundary or a hedge between me and that thing that grips me really deeply.
What do you do with people that say, what? That's crazy. Why don't you have the internet on your phone? That's just, because there are people that just judge you sometimes for, you're saying I have this boundary and you want to, kind of, it's hard not to fit in. Yeah.
Or if they don't struggle with that. Right. And they don't, not everyone has the same the same need to put that boundary up. Right. And I think that's where just being gracious enough to understand what is a struggle for someone, like even in I've been reading the book of Romans, Paul talks about someone who would be like a weaker brother or sister, and there are things that may be difficult for them, and out of respect, I'm gonna find the best way to support them in those boundaries, even if I don't have the same convictions. Right. And yeah, that's just something we do out of love, in knowing our brothers and sisters' weaknesses. Right. But it can be weird and oh man, why do you do that? Yeah. Right. The other thing I thought about with this, as far as how do I practically cut out, is actually something that is happening just in the season of the church, globally right now. Okay. It's called Lent, and so we don't formally practice the 40 days of Lent. Like we don't have an Ash Wednesday or anything like that, but we do have like Holy Week and Easter.
Right.
And the early church would practice this rhythm of fasting leading up to Easter.
Okay.
And there's all sorts of ways that this gets interpreted and implied. But I mean, really, the sincere part of fasting is for it to be this private giving up of something that is normal to me,
Yes.
Is convenient to me.
Okay.
And yet I know that giving it up, even something like a meal, I know it's going to make me think about what Christ has given up for me, and it's going to draw me to depend on him. And so I actually think something like that is incredible, if you can do that in a way that's life-giving and points you to Christ. And so even like in the season right now, like that may be something worth engaging, just the discipline of fasting, the spiritual discipline of that. And for me, this may be weird. I'm giving up listening to music by myself because I listen to it all day. From when I wake up to when I go to bed, like music is always playing.
Interesting.
And it's not that music's bad.
Yeah.
Or that it even causes me to sin, but fasting from it will cause me to think regularly throughout the day, and sit in that silence of well, this is gone.
Right.
And to change up my rhythm in a way that forces me to either be more prayerful or think about Christ more. So I think that's a big part of it. I've never thought this way before.
Right.
And maybe even having a close friend who I can trust to be gentle enough to point out some of those areas.
I've heard of, doing the Lent thing and fasting from something, and anytime I've ever done it, I've failed miserably because I try to give up something like chocolate, and that doesn't necessarily point me to Jesus to give up chocolate. I'm just being honest. It's probably better if I just have it. Yeah. So
coffee.
Yeah.
Can't give it up.
But so I'd never really considered about when in the void of that, that's where you spend that time saying, God, I need your help. I need your strength in this. I need you to step in and take that in place of importance. And
I think that's what's fascinating about the cutting off is of what Jesus is talking about in Matthew 5 is it's not a get it together, guys.
Yeah.
It's he's pressing at that point deeper, like you were saying. It's at the heart level, and that causes some serious reflection. And it's just something I think we do for the rest of our lives that we have to purposefully place ourselves at the feet of Jesus and underneath his rule, because we want to rule ourselves.
Right.
And I think that's just some of the ways I practically think through it.
Okay. Well, that's something to consider. I know we've already entered the Lenten season, but I'm sure I could find something that takes up a lot of my time.
Yeah.
that I could focus more.
And definitely at least with coming to Holy Week in 6 weeks when we have communion services. That's just a wonderful time.
Yeah, I love that. Anyways, well, I'm Bethany. This is Pastor Josh. This is the Weekend Extra. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.